Welcome to Property Chat with Lucy, where real estate meets real talk. I'm your host, Lucy, and I want to take you through a journey of the basics of real estate, unfair, at times traumatizing stories in real estate. You're gonna meet industry experts here, and also I'm gonna share with you market trends on real estate, so you don't wanna miss out on this. So look forward to an amazing time with me as I get you into my world of real estate. Every episode, I intend to educate you, inform, and inspire you. So stay tuned to this. Hello, my lovely people. Welcome back to another episode of Property Chat with Lucy. I'm your host, Lucy Thuo, and this is a platform where real estate talk gets real. Today, we have an amazing and very exciting episode that we want to inform you on how you can build wealth through affordable housing. I have none other than one of the best realtors in this market who is currently practicing in that space, the co-founder at Rensco. And I would let herself, or rather, I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Lucy, for having me back on your platform. My name is Christabel. I am the co-founder of Rensco. So at Rensco, what we're doing is essentially we are helping as many Kenyans as possible to be able to own homes affordably. So we'll delve deeper into that as we progress.
Maybe just as we progress, right from the onset, what inspired you to get into affordable housing?
So at the backbone of it is, so typically many people desire to own real estate,
Yeah.
whether it's for ownership, like for example your first home, or whether it's for investment. And the beauty about affordable housing is that it encompasses many people because typically real estate is it's an expensive affair in terms of getting started.
Yeah.
So affordable housing, essentially what that means is that properties are priced at a relatively lower price,
Yeah.
meaning many people have that opportunity to get started. So for us, it was more of finding a solution where the masses can benefit.
Good.
Yeah.
You've just touched on the pricing element of affordable housing. And just from the word affordable housing, it's just housing that is affordable, basically. So let's look at the financial landscape. What, like for young Kenyans starting out, what should be the first step in assessing whether they can qualify for affordable housing?
Okay. So what we've built at Rensco is a digital platform whereby if you're keen on getting started or in that space, or even let's say you've never thought that you could you even have the financial capability to be able to buy your first home.
Yeah.
So at the backbone of it is we work with financiers, so banks and a couple of SACCOs who are offering now affordable home loans.
Yeah.
When we talk about affordable home loans, these are loans which are subsidized. So you're looking at single-digit interest rates on average at 9.5% per annum on reducing balance. So if you look at that compared to what is currently available in the market in terms of just any other type of loan, you'd be looking at interest rates averaging about 18%.
Yeah.
So these ones are really, really low. So on one side, there's that, the financiers we work with. Then on the other end are reputable developers who are offering quality and affordable properties in the market. So when you go on the platform and we have an affordability calculator that you can use. So say, for example, you're earning 150,000, 200,000 Kenya shillings on a monthly basis. So if you use the calculator, you'd be able to see the amount that you can access. And then the algorithm also goes a step further and derives your, it shortlists properties within your affordability range. So it shows you how much you can access, what your monthly repayments will look like, let's say over a 5-year, 10-year, or 15-year period.
Yeah.
And then you'll also be able to see that that amount literally in so many instances would match what you'd be paying as rent. Then now you'll be able to look at now property options within your affordability range. So that's one of the best ways to actually get started.
Oh, wow. Let me just say we are out of that era where we used to say real estate is for the rich because the government has made it possible for young Kenyans to access this lucrative investment. Now, looking at earnings and saving, what budgeting tips, practical tips would you give to a young person out there who is trying to fight this mentality of, I need to have lots and lots of money to put down my, down
Yeah.
payment?
Yeah. So, frankly speaking, the biggest hurdle that we've seen for most people,
Yes.
even once they've consumed the message, they've gone, they've done, they've used the calculator, they're able to see what they can actually afford. So we have to acknowledge that getting a deposit, because you'd need to, on the lower end, you'd need at least 10% deposit,
Yeah.
but on average, it's 20%.
Yes.
So that tends to be the biggest hurdle for most people to get started. So if we look at practical steps that one could take, so obviously that will be towards savings. So what I'd recommend is you go on the platform, you use the calculator, then you're able to see now property options within your affordability range. Then you can also now go a step further and even see which one you'd like. Then based on that, there's a price there, and then we have various payment plans. So let's say, for example, if a house, let's say a 2-bedroom is going for 6 million, then ideally if it's a 20% deposit, you're looking at 1.2 million.
Yeah.
So then you start planning yourself. You're like, okay, fine. If let's say I'm ready to, I'd like to become a homeowner in a year's time, then you work backwards and you can either choose to now start saving through either a SACCO or also a money market, simply because you want to put your money somewhere where you can also, gain interest. So those are the two options that most people tend to get towards. And then in addition to that, there's also the element of deriving ways of generating additional income. Yeah, simply because, again, using that example, so if you're looking at 1.2, that means over a 12-month period, you need to be saving about 100,000 per month,
sure.
right? Again, it's not a realistic scenario for most people.
Yeah.
Some are able to do that, but for most, maybe not. So if you can also find other ways of just generating income, then that extra income you're able to now top up and also,
So in other
plan
words,
towards
you're
your
telling
savings.
people you need to be hustlers.
Well,
Side hustle, you
Yes.
have your 9 to 5 job, so you're able to get yourself. But anyway,
Yeah.
there's nothing good that comes easy.
Yes.
You really need to put in the work.
Yeah.
Let's explore the affordable housing options in Kenya. What are some of these options that we have available today, and how does that space look like at the moment?
Okay. So also when you talk about affordable housing, the other thing that I need to mention is that firstly, there are different definitions depending on which market you're in. So the most accepted one, or the standard definition, would be housing whereby you're, based on the income that you earn, you part with 30% of that income towards your housing needs. So and typically that would also be again, according to global standards, what you should pay towards as rent. So
Yeah.
30% of your income. So now, having said that, that's obviously relative from person to person, because if somebody else is earning 500,000 and somebody else is earning 150,000, so your 30% is different, right?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, when you look at the market, there are various options within Nairobi city, as well as the cosmopolitan towns, so to speak.
Yeah.
So depending on also what you want, if you're currently residing somewhere where it's very close to commercial hubs, so the commercial hubs would be now Westlands, Upper Hill, Kilimani. If you're residing within that particular neighborhood, then you can explore options, especially if you are either like a young professional. You can explore options within that neighborhood. And we have quite a number on the platform as well. And the beauty about it is now, because the affordable home loans are relatively affordable, then your repayments, if you look at what you'd be paying in comparison to the rent that you'd be paying if you're renting out a unit there, then it matches. And we've also seen instances whereby the rental, either income or what you'd be paying as rent, surpasses what you'd be paying on a monthly basis towards building equity to the house.
Which takes me to my next question.
Yes.
Because that's a great opportunity. We are all getting to real estate to get money
Yes.
and ideally have a good return. What would be your advice to young people on the desired rate of return on these apartments, affordable housing, and the similar case you've just mentioned where you are able to get a mortgage payment that is less than the rental you're getting? So what are the characteristics of these opportunities and where can we find them?
Okay, there are various ways in which you can approach that. So, for example, there's an element of the neighborhood whereby an apartment has the opportunity to generate higher rental income simply because of, now, again, location, right? Location, finishes, size, and also proximity to the commercial hubs that we've talked about.
Yeah.
So that could be one of the ways. And a good example would be there's one development in Lavington. There are quite a number, but I'll just use this one as an example. So the price point is, it's a one bedroom for 50 square meter, around 55 square meter, going for 6 million currently. Obviously, if you came in earlier, you got a price point of, let's say, 5.4 million, thereabout. So if you look at the math, once you've paid your deposit, so that 10 or 20% deposit, then now the balance of it spread across like a 15-year period, you'd be looking at monthly repayments of about 50,000. But then that particular unit can generate a rental income of 65,000. That's if you're, if you're renting it out. If you're living there as a tenant, that's what you'd be paying. So then it just makes sense for you to actually purchase. And then instead of paying rent, because rent is a sunk cost, and you already have your deposit, so it makes sense to purchase that and then build equity over time. And even when you choose to move out, it's still okay because you can get a tenant to come in, and then that rental income that you collect, you can pay towards, completely finishing your loan, so to speak. The other option besides now location would be a scenario whereby you choose to put in a higher deposit. So let's say, for example, again, you're looking at a property and it's within satellite towns.
Yes.
So an example would be Syokimau, where you can find a 3-bedroom apartment of about, let's say, 117 square meter for 8 million. So using that example, you can choose to put in, like, even if it's a 30% deposit, again, you'll see that now your repayments would relatively match what you'd be paying as rent. So those are the two ways in which you can approach that type of scenario.
All right. I want you to just have the 5.4 at the back of your mind.
Okay.
My next question would be the financial options available. You mentioned about affordable mortgages in this market. A lot of Kenyans are not aware of these mortgages and also the conditions that have been laid by the government for anyone to qualify for them. I want us to touch a bit of that so we can give clarity to anyone watching this.
Okay. So when we talk about affordable home loans, the backbone of it is, so there's an institution called Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, which now has members, banks who are shareholders, as well as SACCOs who are shareholders. So KMRC receives funding or financing from various institutions. So you're looking at IFC, World Bank, you're looking at Shelter Africa Development Bank. So they receive funding at a relatively lower interest rate. So I believe it would be about 6%, 6.5, thereabout. Then, so KMRC with the member banks who have signed up now lend onwards to you and I as customers at 9.5% interest rate. Now, depending on the line of credit, so you have a scenario whereby you can, if you earn, the first one is there's a cap of up to 200,000 Kenya shillings per month. So if you fall within that bracket, then you can access up to 8 million Kenya shillings. It's also once in a lifetime opportunity because remember, goal here is to empower as many people as possible to be able to at least buy that first home. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario is now, it doesn't mean just because you earn above 200,000 Kenya shillings, you shouldn't be given an opportunity to buy your first home. So for those ones, then they can access up to 10.5 million Kenya shillings. So those are the two scenarios that you'd be looking at.
So I've met a couple of clients in the market, just curious about the possibility of getting two mortgages at the same time. I know there are people who are manipulative or exploitative of this government incentive, where they would love to get two mortgages, but then what's the condition, if I may put it that way? Can a couple, married, two young couples, all right? The wife gets a mortgage. The husband, will he qualify for the same mortgage?
Well, so access to affordable home loans is based on an individual basis if you're single or a household. So the tricky part comes in now during the application process because you'd have to declare, if you're single, I believe you'd have to swear an affidavit and say you're single. So you can't be married and say you're single.
Okay.
Yeah. So
take note of that, everybody.
So if you're listening to this and let's say you're in a relationship and you're just about to get married, then perhaps right now would be the best time for both of you to actually take advantage of that. Because once you cross over to the other side, then it's per household. Which
takes me to the next question. I could get a mortgage before I get married, all right? And my, so to speak, my boyfriend, I'm assuming I'm married. My so-called boyfriend gets another affordable mortgage, and we get married. Isn't that like luck in disguise why people should just rush and buy now before they settle in? Because once we settle in, you can only qualify for one. And there's nowhere in this market you can get a mortgage at 9.5%, right?
Yeah, that would actually be a very smart
move.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, and those two, that particular couple will go very far.
Yeah, which takes me now, the 5.4 million we talked about. Let's look at how do we build wealth. I always say, anytime you see a very successful person in real estate, they started from one investment. I wanted us to demonstrate how we build wealth from one investment, which now we have a platform where you can start. How do you build this to get to a point where you have a portfolio? And for the sake of clarity, for those guys who are watching, when you're building a portfolio, we're talking about having more than one investment that is ideally giving you some level of equity that you can leverage in the bank or rental income. So let's look at now a scenario where someone has bought the 5.4, right? Let's build that and see how this particular person is going to build equity and be able to get more than even one or two properties.
Okay. Then one of the things that we need to clarify is, so the affordable home loans are purely for residential premises.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know somebody may be watching and perhaps they build residential flats, so they could be like, okay, can I access it to put up a couple of flats? So presently, no, it's purely for residential purposes. So once you've signed up and you've gotten access to your first affordable home loan, and again using that example of 5.4, so what it means is that if you look at it practically, so yes, let's say you had a couple of savings. So if you're working with 5.4 and we're doing the 20%, that would be about 1 million thereabout. So you've paid that as deposit. Then you get to move into the house. Now, remember our previous analogy. So this would have been a unit where you'd be renting and paying rent. And then that rent in itself is a sunk cost because it's gone. You've paid it to the landlord, it's gone. So in this particular case, you're paying that amount to the bank and you're building equity over time. So regardless of the period, be it 5 year, 10 year, 15, whichever period that you select, it means eventually once you're done, you'll get to own the asset.
Yeah.
So literally, you've owned an asset worth 5.4 million by putting in 1 million, so to speak. If you're looking at it from a very layman's
Yes.
perspective. Why? Because either way, if you're living in that rental unit, you'd be paying rent, right?
Yes.
But now you're paying towards owning it.
Owning it, yeah.
Yeah. So that in itself, 1 million, and then eventually you have an asset worth 5.
Yeah.
And the other thing about real estate, the beauty about it is there's an element of capital appreciation. So yes, at the point when you're purchasing it, it's 5.4 million. But then you can imagine over a 15-year period, it won't be 5.4 million. It may be 7 million, maybe 8 million, whichever amount that will be. So that's one of the ways. Then the second one would be, as you progress over time, you can unlock what we call like an equity release, whereby the value of the property has appreciated. So let's say, for example, now it's gone to 6.5 or 7 million, and the balance that you have in terms of the principal on the loan is 3 million. So if you need to access that extra 4 million, you can do that and buy into the second property.
Yes.
So it's purely a game of numbers, and you have now leeway to play around with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It takes me to the mortgage document. Do you think there are things that buyers out here need to be very particular in terms of looking at those fine prints? Because I always say we normally sign, and those documents really have quite a lot to be interpreted.
Yeah.
What are some of the key things that buyers out here need to be aware of when they're signing up these mortgage terms with the banks? Yeah.
Okay, so during application, before you even get to the documents, it's very important to know the cost associated with processing that particular facility, simply because, yes, you may qualify to access 5 million, but then there's going to be other costs, so transaction costs. So there's going to be, you'll be required to pay, for example, what is it called? When you engage a lawyer for charging. So
Legal fees.
Legal fees.
Yeah.
So that may be about 2%, 2.5%. You'd also need to incur the cost of stamp duty, which is a tax
4%.
at 4% if it's within the urban areas. Then there's also the related fees that come, so application fees that come with the facility. So there's a calculation which is called total cost of credit. So at the point of application, you can request now the bank to give you what is called now that total cost of credit, because then it has that proper breakdown. You're also able to see the insurance amount that you'll be paying, because typically mortgages do come with an insurance rider.
Yeah.
So that's just to obviously protect the property in itself, just in case of any unforeseen eventualities that may occur, fire, burglary, etc.
Yeah.
Then the second one would be also protect yourself. So it's a form of like life insurance that also comes with it. So a good example would be a scenario whereby, let's say, for example, you've lost your source of income. So what would happen is, because you've been paying premiums, what that means is within a period of up to 9 months, you'd be covered. So your repayments, so the insurance steps in and actually pays for your monthly, the monthly repayments you're supposed to make up to a period of up to 9 months. So that's one of the benefits of it. The second one would also be, and I know we're digressing a bit, I'm talking about the benefits, but so the first one is that insurance component. The second part is the tax breaks that you get to enjoy. So when you have a mortgage, you can get to enjoy up to 25,000 as a form of tax relief on your monthly, when you do the payee on your payroll, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's also another benefit. But yeah, when it comes to those costs that you need to pay attention to, so the total cost of credit would be it will depict a good scenario. So you'll be able to see, okay, fine, yes, I'm going to access 5 million, but then in addition to this 5 million, I may possibly need an extra 4 million or 400,000, or 500,000 to take care of these other, transaction cost. Now, when it comes to the document, obviously you need to pay attention to, let's say, for example, what happens if you default? What does that mean? Then the other thing that you also need to be mindful of is, yes, the unit, when the sectional titles are generated, so your name will appear on it, but then the bank is going to register a charge. So what that means is that you cannot transact with it. Yeah, simply because the bank has given you this facility, so they have an interest in the property, so you cannot transact with it. Then obviously there's the elements of like now penalties, there's the elements of the tenure, and just small, they always say the devil is in the detail.
Yeah, let's talk about the tenure, because I know someone will be asking, what's the period for these loans, and also is the 9.5 fixed for the entire period?
Yes, so that rate is fixed. It could range anywhere from 9 to 9.9, but on average it's 9.5. It's a fixed rate on reducing balance. Yeah, so we need to make that very clear. Then secondly, you can access it for a period of up to 25 years. But then this is subject to also your retirement age. So the younger you are,
The better.
The better. But then from what we've seen from the mortgages we've processed, the average application timeline is 15 years for most people. So yes, you have leeway to finish it earlier. Because again, I know Kenyans, we have this mentality and mindset of, I don't want to have like debt. So yes, you can finish it earlier, and the beauty about it, you can do so without incurring any penalties.
So in your professional advice, would you're enjoying a 9.5% mortgage?
Yes.
Would you advise someone to pay it off early? Because next time you're going to get a loan, you're going to get it at 21.5.
Yes.
So
yes.
I always sit down and think, what would be your advice on that?
So let me speak as Christabel.
Yes.
So if it's, for me, no, I wouldn't, it's not something that I would rush to clear simply because there's nowhere else where you're going to get a facility at 9.5, frankly speaking.
Yes.
So then it means that, especially if I'm in that scenario whereby I know, again, if I'm living in this house, either way I'll be paying my landlord that 50,000, 60,000. So I might as well just continue paying it to the bank. I wouldn't really have any form of incentive to clear it faster. However, what I could do is I could choose to, again, because people are different. There are people who just don't like that whole idea of
having debt.
So then if I get an extra source of income or extra cash, then I'd rather put it in another instrument, investment or asset class, whereby the returns that I generate, now I can use that to pay. But then either way, if I'm generating those returns, I would take that and just pay the monthly repayments.
Yes. I think also I would use the same strategy where if I have money to clear, I'd probably put the money in money market fund or something, or T-bills, and then even bonds, and then use the proceeds to, in that case, in case of eventuality I don't have income, I have a safe net. Next. Good. Now let's look at tips for first-time home buyers, because also this is very important. What are your 3 top key considerations any first-time home buyer out there should consider?
Okay. So what I'd say is the first one is engage professionals. Yeah. You obviously have an idea in terms of, I want to buy a home. Maybe you have an idea of the neighborhood, maybe not. Maybe you also have an idea in terms of how I'd want the house to look like, because, it's a big deal, so to speak. So I'd say engage professionals. And by professionals, I mean work with registered estate agents who are also experienced in the market. That's the first thing. Then the second thing I'd say is, depending on where you are at in terms of your, let's say, for example, if you have an idea of what budget you want to work around, then you can start, having those conversations of, okay, I have 8 million Kenya shillings. And maybe I want a 3-bedroom apartment. That means realistically, you may not be able to get a 3-bedroom apartment for 8 million shillings in Kileleshwa. However, that is very possible in other neighborhoods. Let's say, for example, along Thika Road, Lower Kabete, Syokimau, Rongai. So that's the next phase would be now to sort of get to understand what options are within your affordability range. And then the third one would be being mindful in terms of your dynamics. So, for example, if you are a single person, then you see at that particular point you're thinking about yourself, right? So then you need to have that view of, yes, I'm young, I'm a working professional, then I can spare X amount because you already have a budget in mind. Vis-a-vis somebody else who has a family, and then now they have to start thinking about children, then they have to think about where the kids will go to school, because then those two dynamics are also very different. Even if you look at the neighborhoods where these both individuals would choose to buy that first property, may be very different. So simply because if you're buying a property, let's say somewhere in a satellite town, my recommendation would be look at somewhere where you're getting an offering where there's an element of community. There's a community aspect. Yeah, simply because, again, that in itself usually preserves the value of the property. So you're likely to experience capital appreciation. Then there's also the element of facilities management. So the place will be well taken care of. If you choose at some point to have children, then they can play around. There's this community, so to speak. And then typically, even if you upgrade and you move to a different neighborhood altogether, those properties within those community type of setup usually tend to have a higher demand from renters. Yeah, so those are some of the things I'd say you be on the lookout for.
Let me just talk to our listeners a bit and just mention the benefits of working with a professional company. You will get extensive research that they have already done in the market to know what properties sell fast and where the demand is going. They're also going to give you a list of credible developers in the market. And the reason why I'm saying this is feel free to reach out to Rensco. This is their area of specialty. And they can help you unlock the headache of working with quack agents in this market. And this takes me to one question. Where would Christabel buy?
Wow. You're
Because
putting me on the spot
everybody,
here.
honestly, I have one principle.
Yes.
Before I get someone to buy anything, I always ask myself, would I buy that?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So where is the demand going in this affordable market space? And where would you buy and why?
Okay. So first of all, there's something for everyone in the market. Yeah. Simply because we all have different tastes, different preferences, different likings. So when it comes to where would I buy, based on my current dynamics, then I definitely look into getting a property within a neighborhood that is closer to work. Again, because I wouldn't want to sort of change my lifestyle as such. So for me, it would have to be somewhere that's closer to work. Then secondly, it would be that element of identifying a property whereby I know the rental income for that property is going to match what I'd be paying as rent.
Okay.
Simply because that means then I just have to start with that 10 or 20%, and then the rest of it is what I'd be paying as rent anyway.
Okay.
So that would be one of my key considerations.
That's good. I've seen good, let me say, rental growth in some of your developments.
Yes.
Now, this question is a bit, I want you to, I'm just going to give the locations, between Westlands, Lavington, and Kilimani, Kileleshwa, which is relatively the same. Which of those three areas have a better growth rate in this space?
Okay, so those neighborhoods are within close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
But typically from what we've seen is Westlands attracts a higher rental compared to the rest. However, and I'm saying this, I'm putting a caveat there.
Subjectively,
Yeah. When it comes to rental rates, there's so many other elements that come to play. So, for example, you're going to look at the quality of finishes in a particular unit. Like, we've literally seen two properties can be next to each other.
But the rentals are different.
They are both, for example, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom apartments, and there's a rental difference of about 20 to even 30,000. Right? So the question is, what makes one attract a higher rental compared to the other?
Yeah.
So it's things like there's the element of space, there's the element of layout.
Yeah.
Especially, I have to really emphasize on layout because there are some properties in the market which just are not functional.
Functionality, that's the word I wanted
especially around the kitchen area. So a good example would be having a 3-bedroom apartment that has a strip kitchen. Frankly speaking, a 3-bedroom apartment is going to have a family setup. You're going to have children. It's a fully fledged functional house. So how are you having a strip kitchen in a 3-bedroom?
For me, that's a red flag with the consortium behind the concept plan.
There's that.
Yeah.
But then there's also a lack of, I don't say awareness, because these are developers. We've seen some of these developers who've done several projects. It's also, because the market has responded and are receptive to it, then you don't really pay close attention. You just build to make quick gains.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You build to make quick gains and then on to the next. Yeah. And that's why it's very important for even that person who's buying to work with a realtor who is a professional in the market and will actually be able to tell them, like, look, if you purchase this unit, even if you're buying for investment, if you're buying this unit, then it means that the much that you can do with it is probably put it on short let.
Yeah, that's it.
Because if you're looking at a long-term tenant, it's not functional at all. So you really have to be mindful of things like the layout of the unit. Then there's also the type of finishes which have been used.
Yeah.
There's also the amenities within the building. And amenities is not just saying like, oh yes, we have a swimming pool, we have a gym. Yes, you have a swimming pool. Yes, you have a gym. But for example, in the gym, what type of gym equipments have been purchased? Are they durable ones? Because it's one thing to say, yes, we have a gym, but then it's another thing, 1 or 2 years down the line, those equipments are not functional, right? So what does that mean for you as an investor? So those are some of the things that pay attention to. Also in terms of like facilities management, in terms of finishes in the common area. It's usually the small detail that people tend to miss out on that can cost you ultimately. And even in the exterior, if you look at the facade of the building, how does that look like? Lighting.
There's so many things.
So many things. So many things that you need to think of. So yes, on a very general basis, Westlands would attract higher rentals, but we've seen properties in Kilimani and Kileleshwa almost at a similar rate as those ones in Westlands. So
You've actually given a lot of advice to anyone in that question. But what is your top one advice for any young Kenyan aspiring to build wealth through affordable housing? That one, that's...
work with a professional.
Period.
Just work with a professional, because then they'll be able to break down everything else for you.
I think that's like the foundation.
Yes.
And also, just to add on to that, I would say assess and know what you can manage to buy. Don't bite too much. And if you have a professional, they can help you unlock that gray area. What's the future for the affordable housing space as we close down?
It's an exciting space to be in. So we are seeing scenarios whereby more and more developments are coming up. I'm particularly excited about developments in satellite towns, simply because you see, so the further you move away from the city, the cheaper the cost of land, which means developers are able to now put up large scale, sort of family friendly type of developments at really good cost, and they're paying attention to quality of finishes. There's also the element of having more amenities, so the bigger swimming pools, the green areas, the kids play area, so you can, it's even a development whereby you're proud when it comes to partnering with the developer in such a particular setup, because when you take a client, then they can envision themselves like living there and raising their children within the particular setup. So that's very exciting to watch. I believe there are going to be more and more players participating in that space.
Yeah.
And then we can make many people, many renters to become homeowners.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. That was very insightful. I've also enjoyed just listening to you as much as I'm asking you the questions. You're out there, you're looking to buy. Please make sure, as Christabel has just mentioned, get a professional who's going to unlock the jargon in the process. And on top of that, I'll add, get a lawyer to just read through the legal documents, cutting from the mortgage documents to the leases, and also doing some due diligence on these developers and the titles of the land. You're watching, please. We would like to grow this community. Feel free to subscribe. And if you have any question, please, on the comment section, feel free to ask. We'll be here to answer all the questions. And thank you so much for listening in. I look forward to seeing you in my next episode.